again, and welcome to the MDOT tour meeting. A few items to note. Want to make sure you realize there's copies of the agenda. We have the priority letters on the table. There's some pamphlets involved. Dealing with I-81, which is our #1 priority, of course. I want to send a special thanks to Monica and Ben. Pam is here from my office, Ray. They all worked on putting this together, along with Kevin Lewis, who's our director, here at the emergency center. It's a great facility. We had a meeting last year, and it's really turned out well to be down here with that aspect of how important public safety is to us. With that, I'm here with Michelle Gordon, our county administrator, and she has a few words to say here before we open.
Welcome. As he said, my name is Michelle Gordon. I'm the county administrator for Washington County. I'd like to welcome each of you here to the 2023 Transportation Priorities Meeting. We're here today to discuss critical matters that affect our county's transportation infrastructure and needs for the future. Before we get into our agenda, I want to acknowledge and thank our state and local officials who have joined us. We have Board of County Commissioners, John Barr, Commission President, Vice President Jeffrey Klein, County Commissioner Derek Harvey, and County Commissioner Randall Wagner. In addition to our Board of County Commissioners, we have Senator Michael McKay, Senator Paul Quarterman, Delegate William Valentine, and we have the Maryland Department of Transportation Secretary Paul Wiedefeld. Your commitment to our community and dedication to improving our transportation systems are vital to our progress. Today's agenda includes a series of important priorities that the county would like to address. Our presenters today include Scott Hobbs, Andrew Eshelman, Kevin Cerrone, Neil Doran, Matt Mullinex, and Jim Bender. They will highlight several key areas and topics, and additionally, they will provide you with relevant details and information, as well as answer any questions you may have at the end of our program. Our agenda covers a wide spectrum of transportation matters. One of our top priorities is centered on the I-81 widening project. Other transportation issues revolve around transportation systems management and operations, improvements to interchanges on I-81 and I-70, Maryland 65 and I-70, and finding sustainable revenue replacement for highway user revenues. Sidewalk improvements on US 40 or the dual highway, as well as aviation needs at our Hagerstown Regional Airport, transit needs, and various state-coordinated projects. Each of these items plays a critical role in shaping the future of our county's transportation infrastructure, impacting the daily lives of our residents, and ensuring continued economic prosperity in our region. Today, we are not just discussing roads and bridges. We are charting a path towards a safer, more efficient, and sustainable transportation system. We value your insights, ideas, and expertise, and I look forward to our discussions, your perspectives, and working together towards a solution that will benefit all parties involved. The success of today's meeting will ultimately contribute to the betterment of our community. Once again, I would like to thank you for your time and dedication to our county's transportation priorities. And before I turn it back over to Scott, I wanted to see if any of our Board of County Commissioners would like to make any opening remarks.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. And I mentioned to a couple of folks this morning that every day is a beautiful day in Washington County. So enjoy the meeting here, and trust that we'll get a lot accomplished, and look forward to good dialogue and good input. So thank you very much.
And I'll save my comments for later, but I do like to announce that Delegate Weigel did arrive, and appreciate his attendance. Thank you.
Thank you.
He paid me to do that.
Okay. Now I'll turn it back over to Scott Hobbs. He's our Director of Engineering.
Thank you, Michelle. We always want to show the MDOT organizational chart just so people are aware. So we welcome Secretary Wiedefeld and the Maryland Department of Transportation staff and those who are watching live. As mentioned, I'm Scott Hobbs, Director of Engineering. We're grateful for the time that MDOT staff. We'd like to show that, as part of the MDOT organizational chart, Maryland Aviation Administration, Maryland Port Administration, Maryland Transit Administration, Motor Vehicle Administration, and the State Highway Administration are all under the purview of MDOT. We want to share that. We talk a lot about roads and bridges throughout my time in our engineering group, but we've talked earlier with Ashish about how important aviation is and how important transit is. I know Travis is here and Kevin, and how we want to be able to be well-rounded with that. And Chrissy's here, of course, with how we deal with our vehicle administration. So we look forward to hearing from all of you. Appreciate that you come out each year and share with you the plans that we have. And also on this, I always want to share with District 6, with Allegheny, Washington County, and Garrett County, and how important the leadership has been with Tony Crawford, the recent retiree, and Linda's here. So we appreciate everything that Linda does with us with the traffic impacts and just the state, our district itself, with Washington County being the core to what we do, of course. Alan, Jared, Barry, Devin, and Roger, and Butch with the maintenance all do a great job for us, and we want to put a shout out to them of what we appreciate, on a day-to-day that we do. So we'll have a PowerPoint presentation as we move forward. We show what our priorities are. Talk to the secretary about our priorities letter, and I-81, of course, is our number one priority, but we have other priorities. And we have a joint venture here with the City of Hagerstown and Jim Bender. So here in a minute, Jim will come up and talk about the city priorities, but on this map, we share with everyone where those priorities are and how they relate to our community here. So with that, Jim, if you wanted to come up and we'll talk a little bit about your city projects, and then we'll follow up with our county.
So thank you, Scott. And also on behalf of the mayor and the city council of Hagerstown, I also want to welcome you to Washington County today. I want to echo what Scott said in thanking District 6 and first Tony and now Linda. They provided a tremendous amount of support to the city of Hagerstown over the years. We've partnered with them on a lot of different initiatives and projects, and hoping they continue to do that. I'd also like to say that the city fully agrees with and supports the county's list of transportation priorities. I think that we share a lot of the same concerns, a lot of the same issues affect both of us. You're going to hear a lot today, I think, about I-81 widening, and I'm going to let Scott and Matt and some of the others really sort of delve into that. But specifically how it affects the city, I think there are two ways. From an economic standpoint, when you look at the bedroom communities in our neighboring states, Pennsylvania and West Virginia, a lot of those residents use I-81 to commute into Washington County, into the city of Hagerstown, and it is a real economic issue when there are disturbances with the traffic flow on 81. So I think that we're very interested in that part of it. The other part of it is that there recently have been some significant traffic accidents on 81 that have caused either partial or total closures of the road for some period of time. And the issue for the city, and a certain extent for the county too, is when that happens, the spillover traffic onto the county road network and the city street network causes a lot of congestion, and it causes problems with emergency response, especially within the city. So, from that standpoint, the city is very interested in seeing I-81 widening continue and extend it the whole way to the Pennsylvania line. So there are a few city-specific issues and projects I wanted to talk about. And the first is what's up on the screen now. The city has what I would describe as a strained relationship with CSX Transportation. We have several at-grade railroad crossings within the city that are in very poor condition. And CSX so far has refused to repair or upgrade those crossings unless the city agrees to enter into a maintenance agreement with CSX for those crossings. There's obviously an annual fee that they want the city to pay to them. But what's more concerning is the agreement is structured so that it basically absolves CSX of any liability for anything at that crossing, whether it's something they caused or something that the city caused. So the city really cannot enter into one of those agreements. We don't feel that that's right for the city to do that. So we're sort of at a standstill trying to get these crossings upgraded. They continue to deteriorate. So we would just ask the secretary and the department if there's anything that you can do to encourage CSX to come to the table and help us resolve those issues. We would appreciate it. Just want to talk a little bit about some projects that we were able to complete with funding from the department. We were able to, through funding, we were able to prepare a bicycle and pedestrian priority plan that looked at the downtown area of the city and developed a list of potential projects that would address safety concerns. And what's up on the screen is one project that was identified in that study that's actually under design right now. It's the improvements to the intersection of Potomac Street and Baltimore Street. So I want to thank you for that funding opportunity. Thank you for letting us prepare that study, and we plan to move forward with that project and other projects identified in that plan. As Michelle mentioned, another project that we're excited about is the construction of sidewalks along the Route 44 dual highway corridor. Over the years, there have been a lot of issues with pedestrian injuries and fatalities in that corridor. It's heavily traveled. Either the sidewalks are non-existent or there are big gaps in the sidewalk system. I know that District 6 has been sort of pushing to move ahead with the project, which I think is at final design right now, to actually construct sidewalks for the length of the corridor, basically. So we're very excited about that, and we thank both the district and the department for making that happen. The city has also taken advantage of other programs through the state, mainly the Safe Routes to School program and the TAP program, to complete some other projects just within the past year. We were able to reconstruct 2 traffic signals, 2 different intersections, bring them up to ADA compliant, pedestrian friendly intersections. It's difficult for us to do projects like that without the funding that we receive from the department, so we thank you for that. But that does lead to a related issue that we've raised in other years that I want to talk about. And it's on these smaller projects, like a Safe Routes project, that has some federal funding component in it. And we're talking about a project that might be $500,000 or up to $1 million. What we run into is that the length of time it takes to go through the process of design, review, redesign, re-review, to even get to the point where we're allowed to put the project out to bid, can sometimes stretch to years. And that's really detrimental to our community, because these are small projects that, if the federal funding component wasn't there, I think we could bang them out pretty quickly. So what we would ask is for the secretary to consider a program that at least 15 other states use, which is called the Federal Fund Exchange Program. And how it works is on these small projects with the federal funding component, move those federal dollars out of those small projects, replace them with state dollars, and use those federal dollars to add on to some other project that already has federal funding. That way, from a local standpoint, we're just dealing with the state processes and the state requirements, which are easier to navigate and much quicker to navigate than dealing with the federal requirements. So I believe that's all I have. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Let me turn it back over to Seth.
Thanks, Jim. From here, I wanted to go into a few projects. We have our federally bridge projects, which we have really good success over the years with staff in the federal aid bridge programming section. The structure department dealing with these federal aid projects is an 80% federal, 20% local match. Really effective for us. The Eastern Boulevard Winding at Maryland 64 project is one that we're working together with State Highway being there at Jefferson Boulevard, Maryland 64, and Eastern Boulevard Winding is a large project for us. We've been working on railroad crossing improvement projects, working with staff on that. We have the same issues that Jim shared as far as some of the maintenance agreements involved with CSX and getting through that, and really putting the local governments in in quite a bind on that. We're looking to remain a stakeholder in regards to the MARC study, anything involved with that updated. We've been going through our Transportation 88 plan. That's often forgotten. We talk about the dual highway sidewalk and how important it is. Also important that we stay compliant with the ramp grades, and we've worked with staff from MDOT on that to make sure our plans have posted. We have our public meetings in order, and that's all on our website. Moving forward, the town of Williamsport was here. They requested a planned environmental linkage feasibility study to be undertaken for US Route 11 bridge. That's has even ties to I-81 and the traffic that's involved through Williamsport and I-81 when there's various accidents. So these are the projects we're working on. Like I said, a lot of the different bridge projects are important to us, along with the road projects and railroads. We have in our community Appalachian Regional Commission projects, and we worked long and hard with those and worked with district staff to get those reviews through the state. 3 of the projects were Professional Boulevard Phase 2, the Halfway Boulevard Project, and Wright Road Project. Professional Boulevard Phase 2 is a coordinated project with the city of Hagerstown, and that's going to open up for development and have a quicker route to our hospital and medical system from various routes around Eastern Boulevard corridor and Professional. So we're excited to see that open. We've been asked a lot, Jim and I, about when that's going to open up, and we're getting close here towards the end of the year. I think there's some material still on order with a long lead time with some lighting and some traffic signal equipment, but we're getting close, and there'll be some publications soon about that great network connection we're going to have. I always want to share a few of the projects. It gets overlooked sometimes in the books, but what we have is several projects that are involved here with the state. Hard to see here, but it's a part of a CTP and involves all the various bridge replacement project, intersection improvements, resurfacing projects, safety improvements that the state has. So we always want to highlight the fact that the state is a big part of this, of course, and the projects that they have throughout the community, along with our county projects and city projects, and how important that is, and how busy they really are moving forward on that. So that's shared, and you can, again, in the CTP, see all of that. As far as the larger projects and interchange projects, we mentioned before about I-70 and 65. So the state's done a tremendous job with their website, and I'm going to talk about that a couple different times about how important it is to notify the public about what's going on and how it's going on and when it's going to happen, the best of our abilities. And the state's put together this on the website, so you can pull up on the state websites. I have some links you can see with there, and some where you can find that on the state website with Maryland 65 and I-70 in this case. Talks about the limits of work, what's going on. The first phase of the work was with the bridges, so that was an important step for us to move forward with the bridges, and now the next step is the ramps, and we know how crucial the ramps are. So there's a plan, of course, intact for a partial close relief, and that's what we've been asking, that money continues to stay in the CTP for planning of the loop ramps and getting rid of one of the loop ramps and making sure that's a safer intersection with what the county believes. And we've got agreement here with the state as far as a partial closed roof and how important it is. So in the CTP, there was planning money. We've heard it's been on hold, so we'd like to see if that could be revisited at least to show the engineering money moving forward and plan that further. We're very happy and pleased about the bridge work being done, but we want to see that the loop ramp involved. Talked about state highway and the website. So this is the part where you can pull up and see what's happening in District 6. So you can see the project, those are the large scale projects happening. I highlighted 2 of these. I-81, of course, is our number 1 priority, but part of that is the work at Moggins Avenue, exit 9. And there's ramp improvements being on. They just started work here a couple of weeks ago. It's planned to be done next year sometime, so I'm sure we'll keep the notice out with State Highway as far as how that work's going to continue on through there. But it's an important step that the state's taking action north of exit 5. So currently, again, in the CTP is our plan, and we'll talk more about here in a little bit with I-81. From exit 1 to exit 5, how important the widening is and the money being shown for that, but it's also some of the other work in the interchanges north of there being done earlier on, Malkins, Showalter, to get some of that work done prior to future work and widening. I sit on progress meetings every month, and the state does a tremendous job of keeping up to date and making sure all the different agencies of the state departments are keeping up with the work for the design. We received recently a pamphlet of I-81 and that's available to see, but it's a great indicator of what's going on, what's gonna be done, when and where. And you can see all the work involved just in their preliminary engineering, and then as they move forward about what the work's involved with getting I-81 widened through exit 5 at this point in time. CTP shows it, we talked a little bit about that. Right now it currently shows, and that's the top slide of the CTP, and you can see in your handouts, it shows there was planning money in for prior years, 2023. No future funding. We'd like again to see that engineering and planning funding for the remainder of I-81, and that's really our request, and you'll hear that over and over again from us. But we're thankful for I-81 and the work from exit 1 to exit 5, and that's the lower slide that shows after all these years of work, the commissioners, staff on the county's part, different agencies, Greater Hagerstown Committee, Jim Kirchhoff was here on that. We've over the years met Mullinex with our MPO. We've stressed the importance of continuing that I-81 widening from West Virginia up into Maryland, and we're happy to see that's in the plan. We just stress the importance of keeping that in the plan, how important it is to Western Maryland, but there needs to be final planning and engineering work for the future phases of work. And with that, I guess we're going to play a little video, and then I'm going to talk about this. This is a video that we put together with our staff, with Danielle Weaver and our public relations office has put together.
In the heart of Maryland, the widening of Interstate 81, known as the Maryland Veterans Memorial Highway, has been a regional priority for over 2 decades. For far too long, this critical freeway has faced challenges such as congestion, safety concerns, and limited capacity. To address these issues, preliminary planning studies suggested a solution, widening 1 lane in each direction, and this design was greenlit by MDOT back in 2005. We've made progress. Phase 1, expanding I-81 to 6 lanes from the Potomac River Bridge to exit 1 in Williamsport, was successfully completed in 2021. Currently, planning and design for Phase 2 is almost wrapped up, and MDOT has committed $100 million in the state's Consolidated Transportation Program for its construction. However, it's imperative that we secure immediate funding for planning and engineering of the final phase, extending from Halfway Boulevard to the Pennsylvania state line. Expedited completion of the project has the unwavering support of our elected officials, citizens, and the regional business community. Why is this project so vital? I-81 isn't just a road, it's a lifeline. Nationally, it's a significant freight corridor. The U.S. DOT in September 2020 adopted the National Freight Strategic Plan, which identifies 3 main goals: safety, to improve the safety, security, and resilience of the national freight system; infrastructure, to modernize freight infrastructure and operations to grow the economy, increase competitiveness, and improve quality of life; and innovation, to prepare for the future by supporting the development of data, technologies, and workforce capabilities that improve freight system performance. The freight moved along our highways directly impacts the vitality of our region. Approximately $6.4 billion in economic output and over $2.3 billion in regional GDP are directly linked to our freight system, supporting around 23,500 jobs and $1.26 billion in wages. This economic activity generates approximately $506.4 million in tax revenue every year. Of this, nearly 48% goes to federal tax revenue on businesses and households, while the remaining 52% supports state and local budgets. Locally, I-81 connects economic zones, major retail areas, and high-employment growth hubs, including our regional airport. Projects like Hitachi, strategically positioned along I-81, benefit a unique advantage. Why? It's all about the intersection of rail and freight corridors that don't just benefit Maryland, but the entire region. And there's more. Alleviating congestion along I-81 is a win for public transit in Maryland and the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority. Having transit, manufacturing, and knowledge-based industries right here, locally, is a game changer. This synergy creates opportunities, sparks innovation, and propels us forward on the path to a brighter, more sustainable future. In today's world of e-commerce and surging distribution centers, we need I-81 to ensure safety, capacity for development, and improved reliability. We are always in direct competition with our neighboring states for economic development in this corridor. Expanding I-81 doesn't just keep us competitive, it adds resilience to our economy, ensuring our region thrives in the face of challenges. Safety is paramount. Various transportation reports have highlighted deteriorating conditions along our stretch of I-81, where truck crash rates are 3 times higher than the state average. Our citizens are becoming increasingly concerned given the recent tragedies north of Phase 2. So, here's our request. We urge the early start of Phase 2 construction, allocation of planning and engineering funds for the final phase alongside Phase 2, and a plan for construction funding to complete the entire project. In summary, the story of I-81 isn't just about roads and construction. It's about the vitality of our region, the backbone of our economy, and saving lives for the promise of a safer, more prosperous tomorrow.
So I want to thank Danielle again for putting that together. Michelle Gordon was a big part of that, along with Matt Mullinex and Andrew Rushman. We gave some information regarding that. The video references the issues with safety as relates to I-81, and the headlines from the Herald Mail, share that time after time. MDOT stressed the importance of zero accidents initiative, and we're here to tell you that the future investment in I-81 is the only way to trend towards this goal. As stated on the MDOT's website, we all need to work together to make the goal of zero traffic deaths and injuries a reality. The most productive option for achieving this plan is to invest in the widening of I-81 to the Pennsylvania state line, and that starts with the construction of Phase 2 as soon as possible, and fulfilling our request to keep the momentum rolling by adding funding to the CTP to plan the engineering and the final phases of the work. And we brought this up, we've talked over the years about really the improvements with I-81 and widening to 3 lanes. And you can see I drive up and down the interstate for various things and activities with my children and things. And you can see in this rendering about the 3 lanes really allows those trucks to be in the middle lane, some of the faster traffic in those passing lanes. And then it doesn't have those conflicts at those interchanges and where you're trying to get on and off the ramps and trying to weave to get on and off. And so I was looking at different photos. I was preparing for this presentation and found one in West Virginia where it shares that FedEx truck is there. There's a motorcycle on the other side in the passing lane, and then someone's coming on pulling a trailer and getting on the interstate safely as I tracked it out. I was trying to figure out what to use when it comes to the 2 lanes, and we had some recent tragedies north of exit 5. We've had 2 in the last couple of years, and that's one of the incidents that we've had there at exit 10 and causes some of that. But I even had a greater experience on that just this week. I was trying to get on the interstate, and there was a FedEx truck and a motorcycle and some heavy traffic, and I was getting on for the 2-lane section trying to get in a short run. I was with my wife and we're getting on, and I didn't realize the motorcycle was back. I knew there was a lot of traffic, so I felt like I need to stay on the ramps a little more. And as I felt like I need to stay on just a little bit longer to get over and wait until the very end of the ramp to get on, or continue on the next loop ramp to get off, a motorcycle went by me going like 80 miles an hour. And I was really a half a second from pulling over and getting in the lane, realizing that motorcycle was cut off by that FedEx truck and came around. So it was one of those things where it really hits you, which hits home on this. So again, we know the state's doing all they can with the exit 1 to exit 5. We have so many exits in our interstate system. Just wanted to share that again. It's something that touched me, and I've been talking about this over and over the years. We just want to reiterate how important it is to continue to work with the state on these issues. And again, it's a team effort, as we've talked about before. With that, I want to turn it over to Matt Mullinex. He's going to share a little bit more on some of the facts and data of I-81 and some of the planning studies he has there with the MDOT. So thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Scott. Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing? Doing okay? Great. Alrighty. So my name is Matt Mullinex. Sorry for yelling. I forgot there was a mic. I'm the executive director of the Hagerstown Eastern Panhandle Metropolitan Planning Organization, or the MPO. We cover Washington County, Maryland, as well as Berkeley and Jefferson counties in West Virginia. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our special studies that we have going on in our area. And so We just completed our first regional freight plan. Actually, we had our first ever regional freight summit in this room back in February that was well attended. And some of the data that we've been able, to pull together, there we go. So we're looking at, as Scott mentioned, the truck crash rate, how high it is on I-81. You see the concentration of fatalities, those are the red dots, up here in the northern section of I-81 heading into Pennsylvania. We also worked with Washington County Planning and Zoning, we worked with Franklin County, PA, we worked with the city of Hagerstown, we worked with the county of West Virginia, trying to get our hands around just how much freight, how much distribution centers, warehouses. So there's about 19, almost 20 million square feet that's either being planned, it's framed up, or it's under roof right now that involves freight traffic here in Washington County, Maryland. And then along with that, we're mapping the safety, the crash density that you see here. Again, it cannot be understated that the volume of trucks, the available space to maneuver, the frequencies. There's an exit on I-81 every 1.3 miles of the 12 miles it runs through Maryland versus West Virginia, where I think it's about 3.5 miles per exit. So there's a lot going on. So these are some of the ADT volumes. So just your traffic map in and around Hagerstown and down at the intersection of 81 and I-70. So we worked on the regional freight plan, 2 special studies. I want to let you all know that we're working on in fiscal year 24. We were working on a congestion management plan, and we're also working on our first ever, it is our first ever, our regional safety action plan, focused specifically on taking action toward improving safety. So what you see here, this map, that looks like something from an Atari. But this is, if you ever flew around with NREX or RIS, you know these data as well. So what that shows is that there's a planning time index, which is a measure of unreliability or a form of congestion on I-81. This is from this past August to August of 22. You see in the PM peak periods. So this is exit 4 right here, and heading up, so Pennsylvania lines at the top, West Virginia lines at the bottom. It's like a straight line diagram. We just have a lot of areas that are unreliable on I-81. Now this is going to get addressed. This is southbound in the evening with phase 2, but we really need phase 3 and beyond to clear up that unreliability there. And so for then the regional safety action plan, jumping gears, what you see here is a line chart showing an upward trend in non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries, which is one of the 5 highway safety performance measures that state DOTs report on to the feds. This is from a performance report that's given to all the NPOs in January from the Office of Performance Management, and we want to do everything we can to keep this trend from going in that direction. So, Michelle mentioned TSMO. So in 2020, we were able to put together our region's first I-81 and I-70 TSMO plan, or Transportation Systems Management and Operations, which built a lot on the state plan. You can't get away from that graphic. You talk about TSMO in Maryland, right? And that's because it tells the whole story perfectly in a single image. So our plan has recommendations for all of I-81 and then on I-70 from Clear Spring to the Frederick County line. And so all the recommendations that we have, you see here on the image to your left, we developed a strategy toolbox by type and location that fall into 3 categories: geometric and safety improvements, traffic flow and signal upgrades, and then ITS expansion. Scott sang the praises and well-deserved of the I-81 Phase 2 design team at MDOT and SHA. So in addition to the widening that's happening, they've been able to incorporate 2 TSMO recommendations where right about in this area, we're going to see the first northbound dynamic message sign on I-81, which is fantastic. And also we're going to have I-81's first automated traffic recorder, which is also, it's just wonderful to have for this area. It's kind of, we're happy to have it. We're very happy to have it. West Virginia has one, now Maryland's going to get one. Something that we would humbly request that we think could be thrown into that are 2 additional CCTV cameras on I-81, one at exit 2 and one at Halfway Boulevard at exit 5. currently there's only one camera on I-81, and that's at Showalter facing southbound. You can sort of see I-81 on some of the I-70 cameras, but I think it would be a little better. Okay, so last year I already talked about the regional freight plan. Just suffice to say that our region has unparalleled connections to the Northeast U.S., and that presents challenges and opportunities, right? And challenges and opportunities seems like what we have to roll with every day. So we're going to say this is an opportunity. And then building on what we did last year, or what we're going to do this year, is our regional bicycle and pedestrian plan. So as part of that, we looked at active transportation demand coupled with our safety analysis. We came up with a lot of project candidates and project ideas in and around Washington County and the city of Hagerstown. And one of those is the dual highway, which we're pleased that MDOT is moving forward on. So this is US 40 dual highway. This is the Reconnecting Communities Planning Grant that was just submitted last Thursday before midnight. So thank you MDOT, SHA, RK&K, everybody that worked on that grant. So I've had the pleasure of working with Linda on the dual highway for a decade since I became the director here. And its importance to pedestrian safety and multimodal transportation can't be understated. So we have been supporting it at the planning level by putting together pedestrian road safety audits, speed management studies, and what you see right here is actually an excerpt for our 2022 speed management study where we are proposing a new signalized mid-block crossing on the dual highway between Cannon and Cleveland, where previously Washington Avenue actually came right through here before the dual highway was constructed in 1966. So you can't get more, that's literally reconnecting, right? That's what it's all about. So, oh yeah, and so the dual highway, in addition to the importance that you just see in the transportation letters, this was the only high priority corridor in MDOT's pedestrian safety action plan in Washington County. This is, while I don't think everything's been released on it yet, what we've seen from the preliminary assessment from the vulnerable road user safety assessment for MDOT, this is the highest risk area in western Maryland, so that's all of District 6. We're so excited about the idea that we're going to get this planning grant. We can address some of the intersection issues. We can look at the lighting and additional crossings. And as Scott said, Linda, D6, I mean, they've made these sidewalks happen along it, and then we're so close to just having this fully complete corridor that's safe for all modes of transportation. Kevin's buses run through there. There's at least 3 fixed routes that touch on it. And this excerpt right here, this is from a 2014 pedestrian study that MDOT did that shows the lighting levels. So everywhere that's dark, you have poor lighting or lighting below the pedestrian standard and the vehicular standard, I believe. And so that is something that the planning grant is going to help us address, is taking care of this poor lighting situation for our nighttime crashes. Okay. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Andrew.
Thank you, Matt. If you haven't heard enough already about US 40, again, this is a project that I think has unwavering support from the county, the city, the NPO, and so as Matt mentioned, we did appreciate MDOT's leadership there with applying for a Reconnecting Communities and Neighborhood Grant. So we're excited about the possibilities in the future to continue to enhance bike and pedestrian safety there. I wanted to take the opportunity to talk a little bit about intercity connections for those who've been following the bill and IIJA. There's been a lot of emphasis at the federal and state level on the equitable delivery of transportation services, particularly in the area of public transit. I think it's clear that the pandemic ushered in a wave of hybrid and remote work opportunities, and that will probably remain. And it will continue to affect population migration, our commuting travel patterns, and public transit ridership, as well as present financial challenges in funding those services. So the question simply is, what are the opportunities to improve Washington County's connection to the region via public transportation? So currently Washington County is connected really in just a few ways. We have the Bay Runner Shuttle that operates under the banner of the Greyhound name, and so you can be picked up downtown at the transfer center and be connected to BWI or the MARC train station, although I'll say that currently offers a limited frequency and a rather hefty $62 price tag for that one-way trip. The other opportunity we have is the MTA Commuter Bus 505 that runs from the Hagerstown MVA to Shady Grove Monday through Friday. So really those are the opportunities that we have, and I know for the people that rely on the services, they wouldn't want to see them diminished, but also I think there's a lot of room for improvement. Scott mentioned the MARC rail study. So that study was completed for line expansion to Hagerstown, but as we know, the following year rail ridership has not really recovered since the pandemic, and so with any rail project, I think there's an understanding that it requires a lot of planning and development before any operation. And so the question is, what could potentially provide a short-term solution and connectivity for Washington County residents and alternatives? Washington County has 16 census tracts that are considered USDOT transportation disadvantaged communities, and so citizens already spend a higher percentage of their income on transportation. And so I wanted to tee up a little bit here later for Neil Doran for a potential opportunity related to the airport and this kind of concept, but I think the important takeaway is whatever the solution, the service needs to have the frequency, reliability, and the affordability for it to be a viable option to affect travel patterns. So given Washington County's location and population, improving our regional transit connectivity would be ideal. And as was mentioned earlier about the bill, there's an opportunity under the Regional Partnership Challenge, which could be a funding and program source for studying and addressing these mobility challenges. So I'll put that out there as an olive branch for consideration. It wouldn't be a tour meeting without mentioning highway user revenue. So we were very appreciative of the efforts taken to prevent local highway user revenues from falling off a fiscal cliff in FY24. However, while Baltimore City and the municipalities will exceed the original funding formula percentages by FY27, the counties will remain funded at 31% of the original funding level and only receive 4.8% of their overall funds despite maintaining the majority of all lane miles in the state. Since 2009, this represents approximately $100 million in lost revenue that the county has needed to offset in other ways, and that's not just a highway issue for us, it's a general revenue, it's a school issue because those funds have to be distributed to all services in the county. The minor annual percentage gains over the next several years could be offset by the fact that construction inflation continues and fuel sales, a major funding contributor to the revenues, are projected to be flat over a 6-year period and decline long-term due to increasing fuel efficiency and growth in electric vehicle ownership. So I do applaud the state for establishing the Commission on Transportation Revenue and Infrastructure Needs, also known as TRAIN, and I thank Jim Percival, I believe, for serving on that commission. I certainly support their efforts to look at ways to generate revenue to provide infrastructure funding in the future. I urge the commission to not look at just the current highway user revenue sharing formula as the baseline, but to consider distributing revenue in a manner that more closely aligns with owners' highway maintenance costs and how fees are collected. As you see up there, there's a graphic that I took from one of the presentations from that training commission, which just shows, I think, future trend possibilities with adoption and greater use levels of EV vehicles and that type of infrastructure. So certainly I think it's something that the state's aware of. And again, from the county perspective, obviously we could use all the support that could be provided for maintaining our infrastructure. Thank you. At this time, I'll turn it over to Kevin.
Thank you, Andrew. I was going to leave mine, but I thought I'd better write some things down. Last CTP, and you're afraid I'd say something. And I'm Kevin Cerrone, Director of Transfer Washington County. Slightly different approach today. One slide, still going to talk about funding. With my imminent departure from a 28-year career as Director of Transit rapidly approaching, I'd like to thank everyone who has contributed to the success of public transportation in Washington County and across the state of Maryland. Mr. Secretary, during my time, as much as your career, with the MAA, MTA, MDOT, WMATA, and now Secretary of Transportation. You come to us with well-rounded experience and your dedication to those public service. Transportation arena should be committed. Thank you. As you know, success in transit is driven by our ability to stretch subsidized federal funding to its fullest extent. For the past few years, Washington County has been fortunate to receive CARES Act and ARPA money to offset unprecedented expenses and shortfalls in revenue brought on by the COVID pandemic. Our recovery of ridership and driver retention continues to improve, getting back to pre-COVID benchmarks. Our ridership for fiscal year 23 was 17% higher than the year prior. In the first half of calendar year 2024, Washington County Transit will embark upon updating our transportation development plan. It is anticipated that the TDP will outline many potential service enhancements for the transit system. Of course, the funding of the additional equipment and personnel needed for these enhancements will be required. New FTA funding allocation formulas have changed and are coming to fruition, and in many cases increasing federal funding for the local transit systems. These increases are much needed not only to cover current expenses, but also necessary to fund any new enhancements. However, as with current federal funding, FTA funding, the new formula requires a 50% match. During my tenure at Washington County Transit, the federal match requirement has been met through a combination of state and local funds. Over those years, the shared percentage has fluctuated, shifting the local portion to become the majority of the share. With the CARES Act and ARPA funds soon to be exhausted, and the addition of the new federal funding formula, the match requirement broadens the gap even further. To state two figures for you, currently our match for state dollars to our federal dollars is at 13%, and the local is at 37%. If the funding levels for the state remain flat as been indicated, the state portion will come to 6%, and the local portion will be at 44%. In Washington County and across the state, it is the wisdom that you have developed in the years that are convincing enough to permit state transportation dollars to grow and be an integral part of enhancing the services we all provide to our citizens. Whether it be planes, trains, automobiles, or buses, streets, bridges, sidewalks, or lighting, sharing the cost to bring such amenities forward has been and will continue to be a challenge, especially from a local perspective. Again, I cannot say enough about the support WCT has received over the years. The leadership of both the state and local administrations have allowed Washington County Transit to become what it is today. We are grateful. I am grateful. Our riders are grateful. I thank you for your continued interest in providing safe, affordable, and dependable transportation services throughout the state of Maryland. Thank you. Next up will be Neil Dorn, our airport director. Neil, I remember my first CTP, and I remember my last CTP, and that's today. This is Neil's first one. It's going to be good.
I was present last year, but that ended so it won't be quite so easy this year. But I want to say thank you so much to the Department of Transportation and to the Maryland Aviation Administration for all their help, not only with funding, but program support as we identify needs in your work on those. It's always a pleasure to work with Ashish and Sean and his team. A few examples in this slide of recent support. A little thing, but pickup trucks that we can use for snow removal. There are some areas where a large pile will just not reach, so pickup trucks can help us to do that. And in the non-winter months, we can use them for airport operations, wildlife management, and other important functions. A few years ago, on the airside portion of our terminal, we had a nice expansion of our hold room. We can hold at least 300 passengers in there. We've got a snack bar, and we have a modern passenger boarding bridge. So for smaller communities to have that in their terminal and you don't have to go outside and get on the aircraft, that's really a source of pride for us. We also see a picture of the runway visibility zone, object-free area. This was the acquisition of some property. As we move through that project, we'll be able to remove an old fire station and some fences that are in an area where, for safety reasons, we shouldn't have those structures. And finally, you see the drawing of our air traffic control tower we have, and then the one we need. The one we need is much taller, giving the controllers the necessary line of sight to see the full extent of the airfield. When the tower is too short, they just don't have that. There are places where buildings and hangars and other things prevent that necessary visibility. And also, we have problems of age and obsolescence. With every system you can think of, HVAC, you name it, mold, mildew, whatever problem. We were excited last year about the bipartisan infrastructure law because it provided funds for air traffic control tower replacement. But as we dug into it, we realized that whatever Congress' intent was for those funds, the way the law is written, it's only for situations when the tower is owned by the airport. In this case, the FAA owns the tower, so that won't help us. So all we can do is to continue to point out to the FAA the conditions and hopefully get them, encourage them to raise this on their internal, air traffic control tower replacement priority list. These are the projects that we are hoping to work on in the next few years. We're designing them. We're in various stages of progress. A lot of it is just rehabilitation of pavement, like our crosswind one-way 0220. And we also have our taxiway Foxtrot in the upper left-hand corner. That's a depiction. The southwest corner of the property will have reconstructed pavement and new LED lights and signs. And we want to do that for the whole airfield. Better lights, better visibility, lower energy usage, to have LED lights and signs for both runways. This is a project we hope to apply for just this month. We've applied once. This will be our second chance under the bipartisan infrastructure law, the terminal program. And we've identified a need on the the landside portion of the terminal in the east corner, the east wing there. We need additional capacity. So we only had 4 small airline ticketing offices behind the counter. One of them is used by Allegiant Airlines. Offices 2 and 3 are going to be now used by the TSA for checked baggage screening equipment and machines. So we really need more space. It's a federal policy to encourage real and actual competition among the airlines. But often the problem is that the airports don't have the gates, they don't have the room for other airlines to actually come in. A project like this, with the support of the FAA and MAA and our congressional delegation, would help us to have the room to have more airlines that take us down. Well, this is the one I really wanted to talk to you about. So, you've probably heard there's a pilot shortage, there's a shortage of aircraft, pilot wages are skyrocketing. All these things are making the economics of small community air service much more challenging. And we hear about all the time that communities are losing their flights. Well, what's being done to address these economics, particularly when the community is small or it happens to be a short distance away from a major public airport? We have a new company called Landline. The principles of this company come from an airline route planning background. And they're pioneering the use of luxury motor coach buses and partnering with the Transportation Security Administration and working with major airlines to allow the use of buses to take care of that short hop segment that would normally take you from the outlying airport to the hub airport. As you can see, they brand the buses. They work with American at the Philadelphia hub and connecting Lancaster, PA, Allentown, PA, Atlantic City, New Jersey. They're working with United at Denver, with the community of Loveland. And they also have another arrangement with Sun Country Airlines at Minneapolis, St. Paul, and they're going as far away as Fargo, North Dakota, Eau Claire, Wisconsin, several other communities, Grand Forks, and Duluth. Had an opportunity to tour one of these buses in Atlantic City, and you can see they strip out the seats. They normally have 60 seats. They take the seats out and they put first-class airline-style seats in it, only about 30 seats, which gives you a huge amount of leg room. And they outfit the interior just like the aircraft cabin. So you have overhead storage, you have in-flight entertainment, the same thing that you have on an American aircraft you can have on that bus. You have the tray table that folds down, you have the charging, you have all of those benefits. Snacks can be served, you have a bathroom on board. So this is how it would work if we had something like this in Hagerstown. And a few years ago we lost Essential Airline Service subsidy. So we lost the daily flights. We have Allegiant that serves the vacation destinations, but it's less than daily service. It's not really a service that suits business travelers. It's not really a service that would allow us to have convention business again in Washington County. Something like this would serve the business travelers because there would be multiple daily trips to the airport. So you would go to Hagerstown Airport if you were a local. You park your park your car. I got planes on the phone. Park your car in the parking lot. You would go into the terminal, you would approach our ticket counter, it would be branded United, American, whatever the hub partner was, the airline partner was. You drop off your bags. Now you go through our TSA screening lines. This increases the number of TSA screeners that work full-time here in Hagerstown, which would be a good thing. You go through security, you wait in our hold room, then you go through our gate, and you get on the bus. The bus is branded. They load your bags up for you. And now, if that drive is down to Dulles Airport, or that drive is over to Philadelphia, whomever we're partnering with, you can work on your laptop. You get some work done. You're not paying tolls. You don't have to worry about anything like that. But once you get there, let's say the Dulles Airport, now you can bypass the worst things about Dulles Airport. You don't have to go to the parking lot. You don't have to go through their TSA line at all. You don't have to ride on the train, subterranean train. You don't have to get on the other bus. They can drive through the fence and take you to the concourse. And there in the concourse, you're right there in the middle, you just go to the connecting gate. It's the best of both worlds, in my opinion. And it's something that's very exciting for small communities and communities that were in the Essential Airline Service Program or were once in the airline service program. Now, this is something that we could do if we could generate our own local funding. We could do it if we could get state funds. It's something we could also do if changes in the Essential Airline Service Program allow for the use of EAS subsidies for these services. And it was encouraging in the FAA reauthorization bill in the House. It had language in there that would allow the EAS program to study this concept, the use of buses. If a lot of these communities that are close distance to Dulles, for instance, the Johnstowns, the Hagerstowns, the Shenandoah Regional near Harrisonburg, Virginia, if they were connected up by buses rather than by regional jets, it'd be hundreds of thousands of dollars a year instead of several $1 million a year. And the pot of money that covers service to all of these rural communities in America could go much farther. So that's the idea. And also the airports benefit. They can count it as a passenger enplanement. And Landline would pay a lot of the same fees for ticket and counter rents. They even pay landing fees, even though they didn't need to run them. And the number of staff that we would need to support a model like this is just a few people. Whereas when we have to partner with an airline, we have to provide a whole crew, a whole team to serve those aircraft operations. So just a shout out to the idea of interconnectivity, reminding people that yes, BWI is the flagship airport for the state, but we have two others. There's one in the east at Salisbury and one in the west here at Hagerstown. We're served by Allegiant. Salisbury has American. But we have local transit that perhaps could make our airports more intermodal terminals. If folks in underserved and disadvantaged communities can have that access in local transit, they can get to our airport. But existing intercity travel, like Bay Runner, points west of Hagerstown, they get familiar with our airport if they've got to pass by it, or if there's a Bay Runner stop at Hagerstown. Conversely, someone in Frederick, if they're going points west and they see the airport in Hagerstown, they get more familiar with what we have to offer. Someone could conceivably park at our airport, get on Bay Runner, and be dropped off at the curb at BWI Airport for a Southwest Airlines flight. But as you can see, Landline may be interested in serving American in Philadelphia or Dulles Airport there in United. But there are opportunities, and it's good for the environment, it's good for air quality, it takes cars off Maryland's roads, and that's true whether these are diesel buses or electric buses. And it helps generate additional traffic for the hub airports and the regional outlying airports. It's good for congestion, for TSA, it's win-win-win. And so we just wanted to let you know that this may be the solution to the kind of problems that have really put a lid on small community air service in the United States. So thank you very much for your attention, and thank you for your support of Maryland's airports. Please continue to give Ashish and his team the resources they need to help small communities like ours and our GA airports. If I can just put one plug in for GA airports. They very often don't have the money to even think about designing a project to get to a point to even apply for a grant. So our states are not able to pull down all the federal dollars that they could otherwise pull down if they just had money to help for design, they just had money for soft costs, things like that. So more money that you can give Ashish, that he can give to the 34 plus airports in Maryland, the stronger our economy will be. Thank you. So I guess there would be an introduction back to Mr. Hobbs.
Thanks, Neil. Great job on your first presentation. I want to send my best again to Kevin Cerrone. So thanks for all your years of service. Truly, the citizens of Washington County, especially using public transit, are a far better place with your leadership over the years. So appreciate everything you've done. Thanks, Andrew, Matt, Jim. Appreciate that. And with that, the floor is Secretary and your staff. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Scott, and obviously the entire team for the presentations, and Kevin, all the best to you. And Neil, every time you mention Dulles Airport, it hit me hard. Just by way of, I want to thank obviously the commissioners, the senators and delegates for being here, and for giving us the opportunity to present the program. Just by way of background, I actually started my career at State Highway in 1983, 40 years ago, and have spent 10 years at the department actually running this program. I ran the capital program for the department in the CTP process, so I'm very familiar with it. Spent 10 years running MAA and working at Hagerstown Airport as well in that capacity, and 10 years running transit agencies both in Baltimore and Washington, and actually I managed a contract where we brought Hitachi to the state of Maryland when I was at Metro. So very familiar with some of the issues in this part of the state. I spent 10 years in the private sector as well. So we basically, we're going to go through the program if we can with you. With us today is Will Hines, our new highway administrator. From transit, Travis Johnson, who you're familiar with. Motor vehicle, Christine Eisner's here as well. And for aviation, Ashish, I'll handle anything you have on tolls, if we're in Baltimore, or anything you might have on Metro. I'll handle that. I did want to just give a quick update on, we had a meeting in Mako where we met with some elected officials and the staff there, and wanted to follow up on some issues there. Since our meeting, the SHA has been working with Visit Hagerstown to ensure that tourist signage is appropriately placed, especially as the new ballpark opens, was one of the issues that was raised in the summer. And we're also working with Visit Hagerstown to explore potential options to allow other entities to increase responsibility for signage placement and maintenance. That was an issue raised. And I will follow up, Jim, on the CSX issue. Obviously, there may be some potential there because we've done a lot of negotiations with them on the Mark line, on the Ashford Tunnel, Baltimore, Port of Baltimore, and the work they do with the Port of Baltimore. So I will follow up that as well, since you mentioned it this morning. Just real quickly in terms of the department and some of the priorities that we have is around partnerships and transparency. It's a hallmark, I think, of obviously this governor. It has been sort of my career as well. I think it's very important that we continue to focus, obviously, on preserving the system, building the system up, and making sure that we can economic mobility for all the citizens of Maryland, wherever they choose to live. We made some progress in the 8 months that we've been on board, but a long way to go. Just real quickly, the way the department's managed and what our priorities are, obviously in terms of financial, what we have to do first is cover any debt coverage that we have, we have to cover our operating costs, and what's left over is available for the capital program, which is what we're here to talk about today. When we think about how we spend those dollars in the capital program, our first priority is safety, the safety of our own employees, and the safety of the customers who use our system. A lot of our contractors as well, making sure that they remain safe. I'm sure you're aware we had a terrible tragedy on I-695. In fact, I was out there at the Hitachi plant when that event occurred. And so we're quite a bit of focus on the work zone safety element. So you're going to see more and more of that as we go forward. We're committed to Vision Zero. I know that Chrissy will talk a little bit more about that in her presentation. On our end, at headquarters, what I have directed the folks to do is take a look at all the policy, regulations, how we even think about our designing some of these projects to make sure we're always thinking about safety, and particularly including the safety of pedestrians and bicyclists, because almost just under a third of the fatalities last year were bicyclists and pedestrians. So it's not only on vehicles as well. Our second priority is system preservation. We have a multi-billion-dollar investment that we've made over the years, the state has made over the years, the citizens have made over the years. We've got to protect it. And if you don't, then basically we will pay later, is the reality of it. And you all understand that. And then finally, any available dollars beyond that, we plow into enhancing the system for the economic welfare and community welfare of the state. One of the other priorities that is sort of a little bit less non-traditional is climate change and how we build resiliency in how we think about how we spend our dollars, which is getting more and more important every day, particular parts of the state, Lower Eastern Shore specifically, but other parts of the state as well. To maintain this system, to build this system, obviously takes quite a bit of investment. We'll take it into the future. As was mentioned, we compete not only locally, regionally, nationally, but globally. So we have to make investments very smart where we continue to do that. And to be frank, we don't have enough dollars to do that very well. We're under tremendous stress. The trust fund, as I think most of the people in the room know, all the dollars come into the trust fund, they get spent out between the different modes. Obviously, there's some limitations around different federal requirements and things of that sort, but by and large, it's trying to improve the overall system. But the pressures we're under, some of these are the same pressures that you're under at a local level, is the cost of labor, the cost of materials, all those issues have driven up the cost, which means you do less with the dollars that you have. We were supported by the COVID funds over the last 3 years, particularly in the transit arena. That has dried up, which is about to dry up. So that was a multi-billion-dollar investment by the federal government that's no longer there supporting this system. We have a dual issue playing out with the motor fuel tax. Motor fuel tax for the trust fund is almost 25% of our revenue, and as cars become more efficient, which is fantastic, but from a financial perspective, it puts us in a decline. And obviously, as the fleet flips to electric vehicles, that obviously is going to be motor fuel. So that is a major issue, not only for us, it's even a national issue in other states throughout the country, or throughout this country, as they wrestle with that. We've also, our titling tax has not been increasing, it's been flat, if not going down a bit, cars less longer, they're going better. That's a good thing, but again, from a financial perspective, that hurts the trust fund. As a result, to try to meet all these needs that we have, and then try to meet other things that we want to do, tremendous pressure to do that. Fortunately, we do have the federal infrastructure funds, so we're going after that. As you can imagine, there's two sets of funds there. One is the formula dollars that we get every year, and we match those dollars, and the other is discretionary. We're competing nationally for dollars, and for those, you need state dollars to pull those down. That's part of the competition. So that puts additional stress on the trust fund as we try to deliver as much as we can. So the bottom line of all that, which you will see in your document that's been presented, is we have a draft fiscal year 24-29 CTP that is roughly $21 billion, of which we cannot fund over $2 billion worth of that work. Historically, we probably would have just come out with a program that just cut projects and said, okay, this is what we can deliver. We decided to take a different approach, again, in the spirit of partnership and transparency, saying this is the issue we have in front of us. Before we start pulling the program apart, I think we need to have a discussion about what are some of the priorities, what are some of the options either to backfill those dollars or to, in effect, how do we readjust the program to support the financial realities that we have. So that, and that was sort of the precursor for the Revenue and Infrastructure Needs Commission that was set up, and I'd like to thank Jim for participating in that. That effort was set up by the legislature to deal with these big issues. A lot of it was around the motor fuel pressure tax issue, but the reality is it's a much larger issue. I've had the fortune of working on different financial commissions in the past, and historically, you maybe get a nickel in the gasoline tax and we move on. This is a different day, given the pressures that we're under, I believe. So that commission's work is due, draft is due by January 1 to the legislature, and the final report is due by next year, in January. So we'll see where that goes. They start meeting in August. They have another meeting coming up in about 2 weeks, and we'll continue to sort of chop away at some of the big issues there. It's a commission of roughly 30 people representing a whole diverse interest in transportation in the state. So with that, and we'll take questions if it's okay at the end, since we'll have the different votes come up. With that, I'll introduce Will Pines from the State Highway Administration.
Well, thank you, Paul, and good morning, everyone, distinguished elected officials, and thank you for having me here today. As was mentioned, I'm Will Pines. It's great to be here with you this year, this time leading the State Highway Administration. I'm just a few months into the job, but I'm really excited about SHA's future. Under my leadership, SHA will continue to advance infrastructure projects that will connect Marylanders to jobs and economic opportunities. Building and maintaining safe and multimodal transportation systems for all users that is safe, equitable, and balanced is our goal. That means we're going to reimagine how highway networks support the needs of our communities. We'll be putting greater focus on safety statewide because one lost life is too many. So we will hone in on asset, work zone, and vulnerable user safety, as the Secretary had mentioned. This spring, SHA released Maryland's first Pedestrian Safety Action Plan, or what we refer to as the PSAP, a new data-driven tool to enhance pedestrian and bicycle safety for communities across the state. We are making significant investments to deliver PSAP projects, working with a new active transportation team and our local district offices. We're also taking a fresh look at organizational efficiency. I've asked the SHA team to focus on project delivery, permit approvals, and procurement timelines to look at opportunities to both streamline the process while maintaining ethics and good business practices. This will focus both on delivering SHA projects faster and conducting timely reviews and support for county and developer projects and our permits. We recognize there are challenges ahead, and that doesn't mean our goals have changed, though. We will continue to improve safety, accessibility, mobility, and maintain a state of good repair. We have to be poised to leverage every federal dollar that's available to deliver as much as we can. I know that was a question raised earlier about that, but our focus will be on trying to leverage that federal money. And this includes pursuing multiple federal grant opportunities. We will also continue to work with you to deliver local projects. Partnership with local governments and the community is the key to all of our successes. I would now like to highlight a few of SHA's recent accomplishments over this past year. We are pleased to share that the ongoing I-70 over Maryland 65 and CSX Bridge Rehabilitation projects is scheduled for completion this fall. This $32 million project involves replacement and widening of the dual bridges on I-70 over Maryland 65 by the premier outlets, as well as the replacement and widening of dual bridges on I-70 over CSX. As we move closer to the completion date, we're excited about the far-reaching benefits of this project and what it will bring for Washington County. The improved bridges designed for longevity and safety are just one of the many statewide examples showing SHA's dedication to the well-being of the community and our focus on continuous improvement in terms of road safety and quality. We are showing our commitment to keeping Maryland bridges in a state of good repair with 2 additional bridge projects. A $23 million project to replace the dual I-70 bridges over Crystal Falls Drive is currently under construction, and we plan to complete those new bridges in 2025. A $18 million project to replace the dual I-68 bridges over Creek Road is also under construction, and this project is a system preservation project that is also anticipated to be completed in 2025. Together, these 3 bridge projects represent about $75 million investment on I-70 and 68 interstate systems, and just represent a good commitment here to Washington County. And last, related to our commitment, I want to take a moment to thank Linda Puffenbarger, our district engineer, who many of you work with, but some of you, I understand, are new here in the county. And she works closely with all of the local officials for constituent services, or whatever your needs may be locally here. We're happy to help and provide good customer service. So with that, I want to thank you for your time, and I will now turn it over to my colleague at MTA, Travis.
Thank you, Will, and good morning, everyone. My name is Travis Johnson. I'm the Local Transit Support Director for the Maryland Transit Administration. I'd be remiss if I didn't start by thanking Kevin for the partnership that we've developed over the last 13 years. It's certainly been a fun ride with you. I've learned a lot from you, and I wish you the best in your next chapter of life. With that said, I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about what MTA is doing to support frequent, reliable, and easy-to-use transit throughout Maryland. Public transit is essential to ensuring economic and social mobility, addressing the climate crisis and needed reductions in carbon emissions, as well as reducing congestion and promoting safer and healthier streets for our entire region. Maryland's investment in new transit infrastructure and maintaining our systems in a state of good repair will make a difference in people's lives throughout the region. Here in Western Maryland, we continue to support all of our locally operated transit systems, who are critical partners in providing transit throughout the state. MTA makes a significant investment in transit in Washington County by providing nearly $1.8 million in operating and capital grants to support local transit operations. This includes funding for routing and dispatch hardware and software, a support vehicle, and resources to support the county's upcoming 5-year transportation development plan. Recently, the agency has undertaken a comprehensive review of the LOT's operating funding allocation formula. I'm pleased to report that beginning in fiscal year 2025, funding will be adjusted so that allocation distributions are more equitable and responsive to changes in local jurisdictions' investment into their local transit. Thank you. I will now turn it over to Chrissy Nizer with MDA.
Thank you, Travis, and it's always great to be here. Customer service has always been a cornerstone at MDA, but we've made some exciting new technology advancements that have allowed us to really take that even a step further. We've had a major IT system modernization thanks to the support of the department and the legislature, which really allows us to deliver what we call premier customer service. So gone are the days when you might need to bring that book or your lunch when you come to the MDA. In fact, nearby Hagerstown branch office, the wait time last year was 5 minutes. Pretty impressive. And customers can schedule an appointment. They're readily available. You can actually schedule an appointment same day, and in fact within an hour of the time that you want to go there. So it's as convenient as possibly can be. And we've worked really hard. We talked a lot about freight, so I'm going to touch on that a little bit. We've worked really hard with our CDL community, and we're now within 2 to 3 days in terms of CDL tests. So really helping to get folks on the road quickly. But we're also planning for what does the next decade look like. Part of that is a concept of one-stop shop. How can we provide more convenient government services to our branch offices as well as online? And so Hagerstown's a great example of that. We have a partnership with our State Department of Veterans Affairs. They have an office at that location. And since they opened in 2020, they've actually served 15,000 veterans just from that office. So it's something we're really proud of. But we know that accessibility doesn't end at the branch office. People want to do things conveniently outside of the branch, and we're really pleased to say that now 75% of our transactions are done through those alternative service delivery methods. Speaking of CDL drivers, as of October 1, we implemented 2 exciting enhancements that I want to mention to you. We've increased the amount of time somebody has to hold their commercial learner's permit from 6 months to 12 months. We recognize that there were a lot of folks who had to come back in and take the test again because they needed more time. Statewide, that'll help about 3,000 people not have to come back in and take the test again. We want to remove all those barriers, obviously, from becoming CDL drivers. And also, customers who have CDL drivers who have a CDL medical certificate in good standing will be able to use that to complete their vision requirement and be able to renew alternatively every other renewal cycle. So we know folks are out there on the road, they don't necessarily want to come in and take care of that. So please let all the CDL drivers know about those two exciting changes. We also continue to make sure we're doing outreach to all kinds of communities, and that includes making sure there's access to ID cards. We are committed to working with nonprofits, including REACH and the Department of Social Services here in the community to help folks out. Additionally, as has been stated before, highway safety is a clear focus of the department. We know that 0 fatalities is certainly the only acceptable number. And last year, unfortunately, we lost 21 people in Washington County, which increased from 9% the prior year. And so far this year, there have been 16 fatalities. So we really are, unfortunately, on par to be at least where we were last year, or even higher. And that is true statewide as well. Unfortunately, we are moving in the wrong direction and unfortunately trending towards a number of 600 fatalities statewide, which we have not seen since 2007. Unfortunately, we know the causes. It's the same thing, right? It's speed, it's impairment, it's lack of wearing seatbelts and distracted driving, the things that we all see on the road. What we're trying to emphasize is these are all preventable things. These are all things within our control that we can make changes about. I will say that one of the things that we, remain focused on is seatbelt use rate, and so we want to continue to encourage everybody to buckle up every time they're in the vehicle. The seatbelt rate use in this county is down slightly from where it was before, so it's certainly a point that we'd be happy to continue to do messaging about with you. We do have highway safety grant funding available. I'm proud to say that Governor Moore announced nearly $23,000 in grant funding, and that'll help the Sheriff's Office as well as some of the nonprofits in the county. These are educational enforcement efforts that truly do save lives, and I want to really commend you as a county for all the work you've done in highway safety. It's clear from the presentations. I generally mentioned the fact that we have a crash dashboard. I love the fact that you were showing data from the crash dashboard, which is now real time. So thank you for that. You truly are a model in terms of really coming together as a community, not just from the highway perspective, but really bringing all the partners together to solve this issue, which I know is so challenging. And in conclusion, I just want to thank all of our wonderful MBA employees, and the great things that I mentioned earlier only happened because of their good work. We just received from our association an international award. It's a trailblazing award because of the great customer service work we've done. So we shared it with the Hagerstown branch because really they're the ones that make that happen every day. And we certainly could not do it without them. So now I'll turn it over to Ashish to talk about the great things that MAA is doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chrissy. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, Commissioners. Great to see you again. It's a pleasure to be with you. Delegation, wonderful to see everyone here as well. I want to actually thank Neil before I start out, because normally my comments are of the aviation variety, and I'm a cheerleader for aviation. But seeing Neil's passion, his energy, his drive for his airport, your airport, my job's actually done, so my comments are going to be very, very brief. No, it's actually wonderful to be here in Hagerstown, Washington County, because your airport is what we want to encourage across the entire community of our state. Your economic development, your community business development, tourism, travel with the aviation sector is very important. And we see that in Maryland, but we also love to see that at the local level too. So I want to share with you just a few quick facts. We know our biggest airport, BWI Marshall, $9 billion of the annual economic impact, over 15,000 jobs. Those are big numbers for the state. Those are valuable numbers. But there are strong numbers also here for Hagerstown Regional too. And we're going to help Neil get some fresh numbers in coming months. But at the end of the day, we want to recognize the jobs, the economic impact, the value that the airport brings. And in that end, we also wanted to share the recovery that we're doing in the aviation sector. Certainly, BWI Marshall is recovering well. Now we're into our 2.5 years of the recovery. We're at 90% of our pre-pandemic capacity. That's a great trend, that's a great direction, and that's on the demand side. I want to share with you also on the capacity side for BWI Marshall, we're up to 4%. We're actually past our 2019 capacity numbers by 4%. Airlines recognize the value. They recognize the travel, the demand that's out there, and they're putting in the capacity to allow our citizens to travel where they need to go. And so that's an encouraging sign, certainly for BWI Marshall, but also for our other airports too. Shifting the gear a little bit on the capital side, again, I loved Neil's presentation because all I had to say is we agree. We agree, and because there are safety, capacity enhancing projects that benefit the community. And in that process, that's what we want to support communities that have that vision, that have that drive, that have that focus in your local community. We're actually, with our statewide aviation grant program this year, $2.8 million across the state. We know the Taxiway Foxtrot construction and lighting project. We're happy to support $344,000 of that project. Again, with the support of the county and our partners at the FAA, we're making projects deliverable to our customers. Also, we recognize the needs going forward, and certainly with the IIJA program, the terminal enhancements and extensions on the terminal, those are valuable projects that we recognize. We're committed to supporting the county and the federal partners in moving those projects forward to deliverables, and certainly so our citizens can start using those products. So with that, I want to pause. I appreciate the opportunity to brief you today on MEA, and now it's my pleasure to turn it back to the Secretary.
That concludes our presentation. Thank you for your attention. We'd be glad to take any questions or comments you might have. We'll have the whole team answer whatever we can. Scott?
Sounds great. We'll open it up now to local officials and community questions or comments.
Secretary, thank you. Thanks to your team for being here today. I mean, the elephant in the room is 81. You all talked about 81. You didn't touch much from 81, talked about a lot of other things. We appreciate that. You did talk about safety and how safety is a priority administration. I think we all agree we want our citizens to be safe. But one of the questions I had when we look at the assessment of the 81 project, the safety box is never checked on this. It says the goals that it meets are maintain modernized, economic opportunity, to be safe, secure, resilient. It's never checked. And obviously, it is a huge safety issue. There's economic benefits of that nature, but as a state road, we have people dying. And it's a tragedy, just one is. And if we're trying to continue to move this project forward, so we can show some insight on how that is not one of the state goals, it's the safety aspect of that. We can enlighten us on some of that.
Sure. I'm going to correct that. That should be checked. It is, from my perspective, having been out there, and as Scott mentioned, just the daily experience that people have there is as much of a safety issue as it's all these other issues we're trying to solve with that project. So I agree with you.
And then going forward, I mean, it's been said earlier, we have the funding, it's very appreciative to move forward here with phase 2. There is no other funding right now for phase 3 and phase 4. Obviously, we'd like to see that kind of consolidated into one phase as we move forward. My short time in politics, you're the fourth secretary now that's been here. And we are hopeful that we will continue to move forward here as phase 1's been done, phase 2, we're looking to work with this administration to help have those funding opportunities. And then understand that you wanted to here for 8 months and there's still plenty of time going, but we appreciate the investments and the talk about the transit opportunities and electric opportunities throughout the state. And I'm a huge transit fan. I wrote the bill for the Mark Rail expansion here in Western Maryland. But 81 has to be a priority. I mean, there's 6 major interstates in our state, 2 of them intersect in Washington County, said at 81. And if we don't get this funding for 81 to continue to move forward, you see yourself, you came in 2 decades ago, this has been talked about. And there's no funding in the next 6 years. It's going to be another 15, 20 years potentially till this full thing is done. That can't be the acceptable standard here, not only for our region, but for the state. So we appreciate the support you provide going forward on that.
Yeah, I definitely understand. I think the state has shown, obviously, the importance of that project. Sometimes these projects do take a while, and there's also the financial aspect of it. But I think the commitment to do something on that project is there. Now it's how do we find financial resources to get there? But the commitment has been there for that project for all the reasons you just mentioned.
I was gonna make a closing comment. I want to thank you, your team for being here. Randy Wagner, Washington County Commissioner. New training center, might have been the first time you've been to this training center. We're proud of it. Will, you said safety. I echo exactly what Senator Corbin said. I was counting the times you said safety, like 12 times. So I know we're on the same page on that. It's the funding. We know that. It's how to get the money. You know, I've put in my GPS now, 73 years here, 57 driving. I put avoid highways when I'm all over the county. So I don't have to belabor that anymore. I especially like the aviation segment. Thank you, Neil. And so I appreciate y'all being here. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good to see you again, Mr. Secretary. How are you? I remember our good conversations in my office back in January, so congratulations. And thank you for the whole team making a great presentation and making sure that District 6 continues to go forward in a positive way. We really appreciate everybody being here, and congratulations. Anyhow, I want to make more of a statement of emphasis. I want to really be strategic in my wording and with my placement of cause. It has been talked about 81, without a doubt. Good Senator brought up that you talked about safety being focused. But the governor also made a comment of leaving no one behind. And that includes all of our highways and that type of stuff. So the time is now. Number two, we're going to be working on changing an algorithm when it comes to how we fund the Transportation Trust Fund. And I just want to be cautious that as the department may or may not support miles driven as part of that algorithm. You know, representing Appalachia, Maryland, economic development of jobs, when people have to drive distances to get a job. People have to drive distances to get health services, whether it be clinics, whether it be specialties. My people actually, any of the basic human resources that the state prides it on in our safety net, my people have to drive. And I just want to make sure that Appalachia doesn't become a modern day red line community. Because if we focus solely on miles driven, the people that live in the I-95 corridor, they have all of their essentials within a 15, 20-mile radius. The funding is going to be on the backs of people who can't afford to be able to have that blessing along the I-95 corridor. And the last part is, as we reimagine State Highway Administration, and permitting, and that kind of stuff, one of the greatest things that ever happened in the last 8 years that I've been part of the delegation is that we were able to get local decisions made here in District 6, not necessarily sent to Baltimore and making those decisions. Don't get me wrong, got a lot of talented people in Baltimore, but you got a lot of other things that you need to worry about. And not picking or highlighting on Linda, but when I make a phone call and say, at such and such and such and such, she knows more about that intersection, does not have to research it, doesn't have to know what the data was. It's been institutionalized. And so I just leave you with those three things. And thank you everyone to the team. You did a great job. See you at 2 o'clock in Denver.
Thanks, Senator. Just very quickly, as close as you can, obviously, to where the action is. So I've directed Commissioner Pines to do that, so I know he's doing the same thing with his organization. And in terms of the miles, yeah, I mean, that's, I totally understand that issue. You know, we are wrestling, not only internationally, nationally, on this issue of the electrification of the fleet and how do you recoup, you know, the traditional way that the federal government collected revenues for transportation, where the states have. We're working with the Northeast, there's a Northeast Department of Transportation, because it's even more unique in our areas because, and this is a perfect example, we were surrounded by other states, and we've got to make sure that whatever we do isn't to a disadvantage of us, or that we be, you know, so it's got to be really thought out. How do you try to recoup that in a way that makes a lot of sense in the type of communities we live in, where you have very dense urban areas and you have very rural areas, whether it's Lower Shore, West Maryland. So I get it. I know none of those decisions can't be made without understanding the complexities of a state like Maryland, wherever we go with this. So I appreciate the comment.
Thank you, sir.
If I could just add one thing, Paul, related to, one of my philosophies is if it's not broken, we're not going to fix it. And so we really want to focus on things that make it better. And your comment about reaching out to Linda, that's exactly the kind of thing we do want to keep. But there's also what I'm really kind of talking about, feedback that I've gotten listening when we did MACO, we went and heard from every single county, is ideally you wouldn't even need to call Linda because we'd have systems in place that you could easily see where things are on your own. And that's the kind of step that we're talking about taking, is just to really bring transparency to all of these processes, standardize them to the degrees that we can, and just help improve the process overall, not taking it away from folks who are doing a really good job already.
Wonderful, thank you.
Again, on behalf of Washington County government, I'd just like to thank you for your time today and appreciate all the good dialogue and the interest here. As you've heard, 81 is paramount for our community, and it's just top priority for us. So thank you for all your assistance and help. And I too have talked to the governor numerous times, and I appreciate his openness with us that Washington County and Western Maryland will not be left behind or overlooked. So thank you.
Thank you.
Again, welcome today, and thanks for the roast of Kevin Cerrone party. I had to say that. First, I want to thank everyone that's here, the delegation, and some former county commissioners in here. We've been talking about 81 for 20-some years, so at the risk of being repetitive, I apologize in advance. It is important to get phase 2 underway. It is important to get phase 3 done and all the necessary studies done. And I want to thank the 2 good senators for their comments, for bringing things up from the check the box to the local control. But things that haven't been also mentioned here, I want to state, is the stress on our emergency responders, from our police to our career volunteer fire companies, to EMS. Majority of our fire companies are volunteers. It puts a lot of stress on their budget. As a former resident of Williamsport, a resident of Funkstown, I hear the siren mode every evening at 4 o'clock, 4:30, responding to calls on the interstate. And you know our volunteers do a lot of chicken barbecues and different types of fundraisers to fund their budget. And with all the accidents on 81 and 70, those improvements that are necessary will help solve some of that stress on our volunteer companies. And with that said, one more mention that Mr. Bender brought up is we have several railroad crossings in the county. One is there at Oak Ridge. That's awful. I was at a stoplight there near Oak Ridge the other night. The citizen recognized me, put their window down, said, "Fix that railroad track." And that's a very busy road, but that's the impetus that's being put on these projects that daily that people have been struggling with. But again, recognize the need for 81 to be repaired, refurbished, widened, expanded, whatever the word, because the stress on our emergency responders is tremendous. Thank you, sir.
Anyone else?
Yes, Scott, just one thing, and again, thank you, Mr. Secretary, not only for work today, but your staff's work with the commission. I certainly appreciate the education we're getting down there, and you know, as we get a little frustrated as this is our 20-some year pushing 81, you know, I will say it's kind of hard to push that frustration down on anybody, because everybody I've always worked with, you guys are good people, I know you care about it, I know you understand it. I don't really have anybody to get mad at except for Kevin, since he's leaving. I guess he's out now, I'll go this way. By the way, Kevin, beautiful suit today. That's probably the nicest I've seen it. But just one thing I hope doesn't go unrecognized is when he mentioned 20 million square feet of warehouse space that's coming. I was sitting with Mike Ross at the Franklin County yesterday, who also is building all that stuff, and he's talking about a couple more projects that's on the hook down there. But, you know, 1 million square feet, that's 670 trucks is the normal kind of term they use for how many truck trips a million square feet generates, and that's 10, 12,000 new trucks on the road. A lot of the projections I'm seeing in some of the documents we're reading over, I think, underestimate that. They're based on past projection over the last 20 years. I don't think they're really, they're doing data projection the way you would normally, but knowing that with us having inside knowledge and knowing all these projects on the plan, I think we're going to see that line of truck traffic growth grow higher than what's projected in the documents. And I really, it goes without saying, the phases that are designed are where we're seeing the most fatalities. I mean, of the 22 deaths on 81 and 22, 4 of them were on 81. We have 800 miles of road in the county, 16 people died, 4 of them that were on 81. That's a way high, too high percentage. So please pay attention to that truck issue. That diagram Scott showed of that extra lane should be a part of anything. I really, you mentioned traffic, some of the causes of fatality. Truck congestion is really something I just don't think is really understood in the state. Because few people have a road like 81, which has that 35–40% congestion when it was built for 15. So just please track that warehousing development going on, and we'll try to get you some transportation money to help with the roads as we move forward. And I know that's the long-term solution, but until then, we got to keep this project moving.
And again, thank you for, I know it's a lot of effort to engage with that commission. Thank you.
Anyone else? Sure.
Ron Bowers, former county commissioner, 1978 to 1998. I could not be more excited than to be here today, Mr. Secretary. You cut your teeth under Secretary Bridwell and Secretary Hellman, 1983, under Hughes and Shaver administration, and also back in '83. It's the last time the Orioles won the World Series. The key point today that I'm coming away with is I've heard airport mentioned countless numbers of times. There's one thing I didn't hear from any of you. The airport is on a full cloverleaf interchange. You can't get to the airport the way 81 is now because of how narrow it is. The importance of widening 81, which is something we've talked about, just like Commissioner Klein said, for years and years and years. If there's a secretary that can bring this to fruition now, it's going to be you because of how you started over 40 years ago. The importance. I've been there before 81 was even built. We were there in the day when 81 didn't even have exit number signs. They were just exits. They weren't numbered. So the importance, and I hope now, you're doing a $4 million upgrade at Mulgans Avenue, which is a diamond interchange. That diamond interchange at Mulgansville is you're putting in widening lanes, redoing lanes, putting in a new median strip, and doing traffic lights. While on exit 1, which is what's going there, it's another diamond interchange with no traffic lights, no widening unless it's under your current plans. There's different things that need to be thought about. So you're at the right place at the right time in history, and hopefully you bring the Orioles home to a World Series win in 2023.
I know there's been a lot of emphasis on 81. I just want to make sure that there's also a focus on the impact that 81 has on some of the small towns that are along it as well. Williamsport right now, we Preston had completed, I think it was due October 1st, but it should be sometime soon. It's going to be delivered, the Pell study that was mentioned. When there are accidents on 81, that traffic has to go somewhere. Williamsport, if it's between the West Virginia line and 70, all that traffic comes through the town. There's a huge impact on our infrastructure. We do have a couple of related projects that are scheduled to be completed, working on flat grant money, but there's a huge impact when traffic does get backed up to the point where old ladies get across the street because there's so much truck traffic and car traffic that's coming through. So we just want to make sure that there's mentioned and there is a focus on the impact of those highways and some of that construction projects going to have on Williamsport.
I definitely understand that. It's not just there. It has this tremendous ripple effect. I know State Highway tries to help us as best we can to manage that, but that's not the solution. Right?
On behalf of the county, I'd just like to thank all of you for coming here today. I think the message that I heard today loud and clear was this is a partnership, it's a collaboration. And once again, that we very much appreciate you coming here today to talk about the issues that we have facing our county. And we look forward to it in the future.
Thanks so much.